chat room. Does God use lying spirits for his purpose? Now I know the Baptist God doesn't, and the Pentecostal God doesn't, and the Methodist God doesn't. But what about the God of the Bible, the one that's written in the book? Have you ever read that one? Do you know that one? Let's check out what the God of the Bible does. And I want to encourage you to read that book yourself. And don't just listen to the pastors and preachers and teachers and churches and Bible study groups. Read it yourself. All right, we're going to ask the main question, does God use lying spirits? And try to figure out if that's true, and then why does he use lying spirits? So let's check out a couple of passages here. First, we're going to go all the way to the Old Testament, and we're going to bounce to the New Testament. We're going to use the entire Bible, starting in 2 Chronicles chapter 18. Now, you can read the whole chapter, read the whole book, but in this chapter, in these passages here, we're talking about a prophet named Micaiah. And Micaiah was called and summoned by the kings to get his opinion about something. And King Ahab was the king of Israel, and King Jehoshaphat was the king of Judah. Now, King Jehoshaphat wanted to use the prophet to find out whether they should go into war or not, and King Ahab did not want to use him because Micaiah never prophesied anything good for that king. He always told him the truth is what it was. And here again, he's about to tell him the truth. Now, this is what Micaiah saw. Let's just read it. Let's go through it together. And when he came to the king said unto him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth-Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear it? And he said, sure, go up and prosper, and they shall be delivered into your hands. You got to understand something. He's being sarcastic here, because if you go up and read, all of the prophets were prophesying that it'll be safe for them to go into battle, and Micaiah knew that, and he was really being patronizing here, and he was being sarcastic. That's why, let's read verse 15. The king said unto him, how many times shall I adjure thee that thou should say nothing to me but the truth in the name of the Lord? He got a little agitated by Micaiah for being sarcastic. And then Micaiah said to him, I did see all of Israel scattered in the mountains, as sheep with no shepherd. And the Lord said, these have no master, let them return to their own house in peace. And the king of Israel said to King Jehoshaphat, didn't I tell you that he would not prophesy anything good unto me but evil? Now keep watching. Now he starts to tell him what really happened. And again, he's talking about Micaiah. He said, therefore hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting upon his throne, and all the hosts of heaven standing on his right side and on his left. And the Lord said, listen to what God said. And the Lord said, who shall entice Ahab, king of Israel, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth-Gilead? And there was a discussion about it amongst the heavenly hosts. And one spoke saying of this manner, and another saying after that manner. And finally, verse 20, and finally there came out a spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will entice him. And the Lord said, wherewith? How are you going to do this? And he said, I'll go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And the Lord said, thou shalt entice him, and thou shalt also prevail. Go out and do even so. Now let's go over this again. Hear the word of the Lord, Micaiah says. I saw the Lord sitting in his throne, and the hosts of heaven standing on his right hand and on his left. And the Lord asked, the Lord is looking for a volunteer. This is the Lord's idea, the Lord's calling. The Lord is looking for someone to serve his purpose. And what is he looking for someone to do? Who shall entice Ahab, the king of Israel. He's looking for a volunteer to entice him. Why? That he may go up into battle and fall. He's looking for someone to cause the king to fall at Ramoth Gilead. He's looking for a volunteer to cause and to entice King Ahab. And they started discussing what was going to happen. They were having some ideas apparently here. One spoke of this manner and the other spoke of another manner. And finally, verse 20, there came out a spirit who stood before the Lord, and this spirit said, I will entice him for you. I'll volunteer to entice him so that he will fall at Ramoth Gilead. And the Lord said, well, how do you propose to do this? Wherewith? How are you going to do it? And he said, I'll go out and I'll be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. One spirit came forth, there came out a spirit, one spirit, and he said, I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. One spirit will be a lying spirit in all the prophets. One spirit can affect all the prophets. And the Lord said, thou shalt entice him. In other words, I approve, and not only do I approve of this, I will bless it and ordain it that it will come to pass and be successful. He says, and thou shalt also prevail. Go out and do even so. Now let's read verse 22. What does the scripture say? Now therefore, behold, the Lord hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of these thy prophets, and the Lord has spoken evil against thee. Brothers and sisters, God will, does, and can use lying spirits for his purposes. He judged the king of Israel, King Ahab. He judged him. It was time for him to die. And this is the meeting that was taking place in heaven about how that was going to manifest. This is not a metaphorical analogy. This is a literal meeting of the minds of heaven and the angels, angelic forces, and God and the council that was before him. Literal beings with literal discussions, with literal ideas about a literal judgment against a literal king on this earth, a literal consequence, a literal lying spirit that was called forth to literally entice the king that he may fall in Ramoth Gilead at war. This is literal. This really happened. This is not some Greek mythology. This is factual. And so I want to go to some more scriptures, and then we're going to talk about why else God may be doing this. And I want to show you that God is indeed doing this, and he's got a plan to do it in an intense and mighty way in this generation. And we don't want to fall into deception or to be enticed by lying spirits. And we can't avoid it. There's a way of avoiding being enticed, that we may fall, that we may be deceived. God is showing us not only that he does do this kind of thing, but he's showing us that he was going to do it again, and he is doing it now, and he's telling his saints, his elect, chosen people, how to avoid it. Do you want to avoid it? Because I do. Let's read some more. Check it out.